What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Biblical Hitman. It's your host, Steven. Tonight in the studio is Topher, a.k.a. Biocharisma. Folks, this is going to be a great show. This gentleman is just a wealth of knowledge, so we're going to get into it. But hey, listen, if you want to support the show, it's free. Head on over to YouTube. While you're there, smash that subscribe button, like the show, share it with your friends. And if you're not on the video side of things, we're everywhere. Don't worry about it. Come on over to the audio side, and you can find us on Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. While you're there, if you like the show, why don't you just drop a follow, but leave that 5-star review, oh so kindly, and hit that notification bell because we do drop episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. But we've been dropping some extra ones because, you know, your boy's putting in a lot of work here. And real quick with the audience, I appreciate everyone getting through the ad space. It's the best way to really support the show. I know it sucks, but, you know, you folks getting through it is something that keeps this show continuing forward. And I really, I'm just very thankful for that. But Topher, welcome, man. Thank you.
Steven, it's great to be here.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So please, for the people that aren't familiar with what you do, who you are, if you just wouldn't mind just giving a little intro of yourself and where they can find all you and all your outlets and podcasts and all that.
My name is Christopher Gardner. I am host of the Biocharisma podcast. That's one of my occupations. I'm also a professional dome builder. So I've been building domes and curvilinear structures for about 18 years now. And that's a lot of fun. I build all different types of, I guess you'd say, hybridized systems. Right now, centered in the middle of the United States in Missouri. I'm also a deep tissue myofascial release expert. That's my longest held, profession. I've been doing that now professionally for 26 years, which is crazy to say. And I also have a biochar company. So we make biochar, which is the best way to say it, it's just an organic carbon amendment that you can give to your soil to supercharge your soil. So if you have a garden or if you're doing something out in your yard, you want to make your lawn look nice, you just add biochar as a top cover, and it attracts all the good bacteria, and then you have a proliferation of life, and it's all good. So those are the 4 main things that I'm doing right now. You can find all of my, well, I shouldn't say all of my work. I have my podcast is on all the players. It's the Biocharisma podcast on all the players. I usually do live streams on YouTube. YouTube hasn't, when I used to post my podcast on YouTube, they used to shut me down a bunch. But so I find with live streams, I can kind of wiggle my way in there. So I'm at Biocharisma on YouTube, I believe in Rumble also, in BitChute. And what else? Oh, and my website, which is a dinosaur, I'm changing that out. I'm launching my new site in 1 month. But as of right now, tophurhq.com is the website that you can go to if you want to contact me on an individual basis.
Geez, man, you wear a lot of hats. You're a builder, you do, agriculture. It sounds like you're into that stuff. I mean, I'm going to pick your brain about that because I've got land and I plan to cultivate it. And I plan to.
14 acres.
That
was my number in college football.
Oh, nice. Right on. And plus you're from where I'm from. Originally, South Florida. Let's go.
Us Florida boys have to stay together, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I went to Douglas High School down there. If no one knows where that is, that's where that Valentine's Day shooting was at. Yeah. Crazy, man. Small world.
Yeah. Douglas always had really good soccer and really good swimming. I remember that back when I was in high school in the early 90s.
Yeah. Wow. So you build buildings. The architecture is magnificent. It's could you tell us a little bit about so you're a GC, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and there's no one else out there building these kind of things that you're building, or
there's a few other people, but my specific style of dome, where I use the Japanese star dome as the metal chassis for the dome. Like there's a lot of people that do aircrete or do ferro cement. There's a great guy out there named Aircrete Harry. He blows them up like a balloon. There's Dome Gaia that builds them like an igloo. But my style is a little bit more, I I guess you would call it foolproof, because I build my domes like you'd build a bridge. And so what I do is I put metal under tension. So the whole structure is essentially, if you had like 15 bows of like a bow and arrow, where you pull the bow back, we go ahead and do that to these big metal struts. And then we lock them into position, and then we put the concrete over it. And that's pretty much the way they build bridges, because when you put tension in metal and then you freeze it in concrete, it makes the concrete that much stronger.
Oh,
So yeah, it's pretty cool. So you
nice.
can you can get away with a lot less concrete as long as the metal is under tension. And so when I found that system, I had found like the pinnacle, because a lot of people are into geodesic domes, which I had built too. And I had to say geodesics are good if you have to do it all by yourself, and you can like piece it together and work piecemeal, thing like that. But having a crew and training up men where we can go in there and we can go ahead and bend these struts and put them in place. And we've built up to 42 foot in diameter, which is huge. So our struts were 66 feet long.
Oh, wow.
um, yeah, had a crane, the whole thing. Like that gives you a structure that's under tension, and then the shape itself is like the best way to say it, it's a hemisphere. This is just when we're doing the domes. Like I also build reciprocal roofs, which are pre-stressed roofs and all of this different stuff. But the domes are what's selling right now. The domes themselves are very resilient, because just like in nature, like nature doesn't blow a cubical bubble. When you see bubbles in nature, it's always a sphere. And so the dome is just half of that. It's hemisphere. And it's the most amount of surface tension that you can get in a shape given the area. So it's very efficient. And being from South Florida, I was primed to like get into structures that could handle hurricanes. And then living in Costa Rica for as long as I did, I was primed to build buildings that could handle earthquakes. And so now I'm here in the Midwest where we have tornadoes. And so I'm like, I go from one natural disaster to another to another. It's just like, okay,
Yeah.
can these structures handle these things? And
It's like you
so,
know how to build the ultimate building now, you know?
yeah, I really feel like it. We have a one of the versions of our structure that we have a bunch of clients that were devastated in Altadena, California, and they have to now, there's the whole fire thing that's going on. And
Yeah.
so we have a version of our dome that's fireproof, because we add biochar to our aircrete and to our concrete, and that essentially fireproofs the concrete and fireproofs the structure. So that, along with geopolymers that we add to the outside, to essentially the geopolymer also adds a level of fire safety. So different areas of the country have different things that they have to consider. I think we're all getting hit with an onslaught of whatever, whether it's a hurricane, a fire, a tornado, an earthquake.
Hmm.
It's best to have structures that are resilient to that. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
why I'm focusing on it. To me, I can't build a box all that well, but I can build a hemisphere very well.
Yeah, and for anyone who wants to kind of get some sort of illustration of what this looks like, I mean, go check out his stuff, of course, but it almost kind of looks like
Mhm.
the Epcot ball, you
Yeah.
know?
Well,
It's
that's a
almost similar like that.
geodesic.
Okay.
Geodesics have all the little triangles and stuff. So the Epcot ball, I think, is a 13 frequency geodesic sphere. That's like Buckminster Fuller's buckyball. That is the Epcot ball. That's what I started with, but I found that they fail because where all those little triangles meet each other, you have joints, and those joints will fail, especially in high humidity environments. And I keep
Mm.
I keep moving from one high humidity environment to another high humidity environment. So I needed a system where I wanted to deal with overlaps. So like you can't have a failure of a joint when you have, one strut overlapping another strut. Like nothing fails then.
Gotcha.
And yeah, so the best way to think of the way my domes are, they've also been called mandala domes because there was a Japanese mathematician that was actually looking at the math of mandalas. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Contact. Have you? Have you ever seen the movie Contact?
So, what movies? Who's in that movie?
It's Jodie Foster. It was in the late '90s, the movie, and essentially
No.
it was based off the book from Carl Sagan. And it's about space, which I don't believe in or anything like that. But what was cool in that movie was in the movie she kept trying to break this code, and she didn't see what it was until somebody told her to look at it in 3 dimensions. And the second she looked at it in 3 dimensions, she was like, "Oh, there it is!" Like the cipher was there. Well, that's what this Japanese mathematician was seeing. He was looking at the mandala in 2 dimensions. He had the instinct to look at it in 3 dimensions, and when he looked at 3 dimensions, it was a dome. And so he did the math on it, and it's just like 15 equal length struts. You've overlapped them at this geometry, and then you pop it into place like a tent, and you can scale that as big as you want.
Nice. What got you into building? I mean, how'd you come across
My
that?
dad was a builder. My dad was a commercial contractor. He built skyscrapers essentially. And so he was very big, even though he was like in the system, like like he did mortgages, he had debt. He was always giving me like little tidbits of information, like don't ever go into debt. He was like, the best thing to do is like buy all your materials for cash and build it yourself. And I never thought I was going to be a builder or a gardener, even though my last name's Gardner, and I just ended up being both. But he and we saw this documentary from 60 Minutes. I believe it was in, geez, I was 13 years old. It was must 1988 or 89. And in this doco from 60 Minutes, they pointed out this guy that was living in the Barrier Islands off North Carolina couldn't get insurance because those islands kept getting hit. And everybody was telling this old man to move off the island. He's like, no, he planted his flag. I was born here. I'm going to die here. So he hired this Italian architect that used this pneumatic way to blow up this huge ferrocement dome. And another hurricane hit after the dome was built, and he was just fine. And I remember my dad and I were watching this in amazement, and he's like, that's the way to do it. And it just stuck with me. I loved round structures. I loved the whole thing. When it came to aerodynamics, I studied a lot with like aeronautical engineering, and like I just love flow forms more or less. And then I got into a study of in hydrology of like where you actually want to store water in egg shapes. And that brought me back to domes because an egg shape is essentially a hemispherical dome on 1/3 of it, and then it's a lancet arch dome on 2/3 of it. And so in studying that, and then I was drawing my dome home in Costa Rica and all the rest of it, I had a client that was like, "That's what I want." And I was like, "Great. If you send me to school to learn how to build it, I'll build it for you." And he did. So I did. I went to Cal Earth University, and I took their course and their extended practicum, and then went back to Costa Rica, and I built him his home. And from then on, there's just been, a demand for those. So, and then
Yeah,
I've hybridized their system because when I was there, they were telling me, "Oh, well, you might want to consider other materials. Like this isn't the end all be all. This is great for this, this, and this, but if you can use X, Y, and Z, it's better to do that." And I took them at their word for it.
gotcha, gotcha. Have you
Mhm.
built for anyone that, maybe the audience may know? Any big names or anything?
I've built for a lot of like CEOs of corporations that were, I guess I could say I built for Tom Newmark. I don't know if anybody knows who that is. He's allowed me to use his name publicly. He owned New Chapter Organics. That was the first whole food supplement nutrition company that was out there. So I built for him in 2010. Trying to think of anybody else that's semi-famous that I'm allowed to talk about. Um,
Well,
almost everybody,
we don't
almost
have to get
everybody
too
makes
deep
me
into it.
signed a non-disclosure agreement. So,
Gotcha.
um,
Gotcha. Respect.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know of anybody really like, in the pop culture. There's no one like that I've ever built for.
Gotcha, gotcha. So you're also into, right, like the agriculture stuff, the biochar. You mentioned biochar. You use it with your construction. You use it
Hmm.
with gardens.
Yes.
What's biochar, and just kind of take me down that road.
Biochar is like a miracle. That's the best way to say it. Most people think charcoal is biochar. They're very similar. It's a black carbon substance. But unlike charcoal, what we do is when we cook biomass to get charcoal, well, the way we cook it in a very low oxygen environment and an extremely high heat. So usually the way they make charcoal is they have these pits and they throw all this biomass in there and they kind of light it on fire and they do a smolder burn. And so it's decently hot. And then they quench it and then you end up with this charcoal product because the oxygen in the air, the overall atmosphere around the biomass does a secondary oxidation. The way we do our biochar is essentially we cook it in a vessel that doesn't allow the outside air to touch it. So there's only heat oxidation. And because we can get our heat up, like our heat curve is very, very fast, it creates a diamagnetic quality to biochar. So, like, I'm sure you've heard of graphene, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like,
I'm a fanatic with graphene, especially like in the biomedical industry. It's like my thing I've been studying recently.
so graphene is one molecule thick biochar. So if you were to see a clump of like where graphene comes from, like usually when they're making graphene for biomedical stuff or for electronics, they'll pyrolyze. That's the technical term for taking something that contains carbon and putting it in a no oxygen environment and heating it up. This is what the alchemists used to do. It's literally the alchemical process is when they call it the blackening or the negretto phase, that is the pyrolyzation. And the reason why they do this is carbon is it becomes a superconductor when it's pyrolyzed. And so the reason why this is good in agriculture and the reason why it's good in our body is number one, it's a excellent binder. It will bind to anything that has a positive charge, which in our bodies, those are usually free radicals. So it will bind to the free radicals, so those can't mess you up. Another thing is it's very good at structuring water. So when water passes over it, it instantly structures it and cleans it. So high quality water usually induces more information from the information field, which is great. That's very helpful. And the more structured water you have near the roots of your plants, the better. And then that whole communication thing when it's in your soil is that it allows the rhizomes of the plant to actually communicate with the fungus in the soil and also the bacteria in the soil. And when they're all communicating well, then you get the right uptake of what the plant needs. So it's very different than like, the NGK model of agriculture that we've had, since World War II. It's like, just throw nitrogen at it, just throw, this, just throw a chemical at it, and that'll be enough. This is actually breeding, like I'm sure you've heard of probiotics. Like when we take in probiotics, the notion is that once our gut is populated with the right biota, then our gut, whatever we eat is transmuted by those bacteria into what our body needs, you know? So like if you read the different literature on gut dysbiosis, pretty much all of our sickness comes from gut dysbiosis. And that just means unhealthy bacteria in our gut. Same thing with our soil. Our soil and our gut are the same thing. A lot of
Mm.
people don't think like that, but that's primarily why I actually got into biochar. Was I had a cacao grove on my farm in Costa Rica that I had planted all these new cacao trees, and they were kept getting eaten by leafcutter ants. And it was very upsetting because there's a lot of money and I was kind of attached to my trees. And I was, primed by a permaculturist to look into terra preta, which is biochar. And he said, have you ever gotten toxic shock? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, when you go to the hospital and they give you activated carbon, like down there, they call it carbon. Activated carbon is the same thing as biochar, is the same thing as terra preta. And I knew a little bit about that. I was like, wow. And he explained the whole thing I just explained to you about the communication and like what it does in the soil. So I started to top dress this cacao grove that I had, and it all came back to life. In the leaf cutter ants never came back. And then I actually started to get good at gardening, which I wasn't
You
any
weren't killing
good.
everything all the time.
Well, it was just I didn't know what I was doing. I was a gringo moving down to the tropics, and like, we're fed these lies like, oh, it's easy to grow food down here and this, that, and the other. And it's not. There's so much rain. There's so many pests that unless your soil is perfect, you're kind of wasting your time. And I really didn't know what I was doing until the biochar thing. And the biochar was like, the ultimate ag hack. It allowed me to like actually have success with my cacao and my jackfruit trees and my coffee plants. Like everything just started to flourish after that.
Nice. So, is this like zeolite? Are you familiar with what zeolite is?
I am in the sense that I know zeolite's a binder.
Right.
Um, I don't know much. I don't know about its composition. I know a lot of people will use zeolite in our body as a way to bind up toxicity. I'm not familiar with how it would be used in agriculture.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I there's this detox that I take. No, I mean intermittently. It's something that I do. I'll do it for a month. I'll go off a month. I'll do it for a month or whatever. But it's a cellular detox. It's
Hmm.
zeolite, which is like a volcanic ash and stuff. Which I've seen like good results from it, and I think it's good. I mean, it's got a tremendous amount of reviews on it, and from all the in-depth research, I think it's the best binder that you can find out there. Binding these things to the toxins is the most important part of getting a detox. If you're not getting something that is binding correctly or doing it properly, it's really kind of not the it's not doing the best job, that you're anticipating it to do. If that makes any
That's so
sense.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, zeolite is on the paramagnetic side of things. Biochar is a little bit, the best way you could think of paramagnetism is it's more like the feminine energy. It's like very receptive and everywhere. And you could think of biochar as diamagnetic energy, which is more like the male energy. It's more like one pointed and focused. And so there is nothing more diamagnetic on the earth than biochar. Like bismuth is the most diamagnetic metal that there is. Biochar is 3 times as diamagnetic as bismuth.
And when you
So
and when you s- sorry, go ahead.
yeah, so like it's this amazing, like when I say it's like the denouement, the pinnacle of binders, especially for free radicals. Like when you just look at at what would actually attract free radicals, any like very very high diamagnetic material would just suck it right to it. Like it's and with how porous biochar is, I'm pretty sure zeolite's made out of a lot of basalt, and basalt is cool. It's very paramagnetic, but doesn't have nearly the amount of porosity that the carbon does. So I'm sure they're just working on opposite ends of the spectrum. Um, and I've heard of good results on both, but the tails of the tape, like if you get toxic shock in your GI tract, they're giving you activated carbon. They're not giving you zeolite.
Right. And like, so toxic shock would be something to where you ingest something that's a poison, right? And then
Yeah.
you use this to, you know, well, at least in the medical field, it's been, at least here, it's been known as activated charcoal. I remember that from EMT school because it was like the only thing that an EMT could really do for a patient other than,
Right.
something very simple, right? Or
Hmm.
assist with like an inhaler or, assist with a EpiPen. When you're an EMT, all you do is assist with things, but your scope is like very limited. Um, so with biochar, I'm assuming it really increases the nutrients of the soil, right? Actually feeds the nutrients of the soil. It's making our food healthy. Is that what you're kind of getting to?
Yeah, and it increases your yields consider like a crazy amount just because so when you create the right conditions for the soil, like it's a carbon amendment. So all of us have seen black soil. Like black soil looks much better than red soil. There's usually a lot more life in black soil. And the reason why soil will turn black is because there's a large amount of carbon in it. And I got into biochar in like this whirlwind because one of my clients, he was he was essentially an ex US general that was telling me like, look, this agenda 21 thing's for real. They're going all over the world. They're lying about carbon and they're lying about all these other things. And so I had him in my ear before I even found out about Terra Preta, which is biochar in the Amazon. And then I was like, I made the link and I was like, oh, they inverted this too. They're telling us there's too much carbon and we're going to, oh, carbon credits and the whole thing. We're actually in a carbon deficit. And so as soon as I made that link, then I was like, ah. And then I saw all these different ordinances all around the world, depending on where I was building, where they were trying to get rid of fire. And to me, I was like, oh, the fire element, they're trying to take the fire element out of people. It's a way of castrating men in a lot of ways. Like you take the fire element away from a man, and he doesn't really get to be a man, like whether it's like chopping wood, whether it's, actually setting a fire, all the different things that are needed to like actually like non-electrically keep your family warm and cook and all that. They were slowly through all this different propaganda trying to take this away from the male vibration, because in any space usually the man is the one that's taking care of the fire. Let's just be honest about it. And this is what I was seeing as also part of the agenda, the attack on the male spirit, on the attack on the father, the attack on, you know, uh, just healthy, like a healthy male role. And I know this sounds a little bit out there, but I was like, oh, well, I'm going to disinvert this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build rocket stoves where by the time the fire goes through the system, the exhaust is not even hot. So they can't read a heat signature. So you could still have a fire. And in these rocket stoves, I'll make biochar. So I can fix all the carbon in the world. So if somebody comes to me in 10 years and says, hey, I'm going to tax you for the carbon that you put into the atmosphere, I'll go, oh, but I fixed, 4 tons of carbon right here. Because that's where the world's going, whether people know it or not. Like they
Right.
literally have these types of taxes that are going on in most places that are not the United States. And because I just moved back to the States a few years ago, like I had lived abroad for close to 20 years, and it was just like, oh, they're literally taking fire away. So I just wanted to find some efficient ways where I could actually fix the carbon, have heat, and then use it to actually have my yields go up at my farm. And then I saw that when this was mixed with concrete, I read all these studies from Japan and Germany where they were using this amendment in cement or with cement to make concrete. And they were getting these incredible results from it. And I had already been studying because I work with geopolymers. I went to the Geopolymer Institute in 2014 to study on how to make a geopolymer from bauxite clay, because that's where I lived, had a lot of bauxite clay. And I mean, uh, when you look at the science of geopolymers, activated carbon, or like you said, activated charcoal, in conjunction with some sort of active calcium, they go together like white on rice, man. They love each other. It's like, because when you look at the molecular structure of them, they like fit like Legos. It's just like, oh,
Mm,
calcium and carbon, dink dink. And
yeah.
so that's what a geopolymer is. Like a geopolymer is when the solution that you've mixed becomes one homogeneous crystal. It's essentially a crystal, a geological crystal. Whereas cement, or excuse me, I keep saying cement. Cement's just the binder. When you mix cement with aggregate, all you end up with is a bunch of aggregate that's bound to the cement. They never actually combine at a molecular level. So it's not crystalline. And what you see is when you add biochar to that, the biochar, the carbon that goes into that, it creates such a greater binding force of the calcium, because calcium oxide is essentially cement, that what it does is it all pulls and tightens the aggregate closer to one another, so it becomes more homogeneous, like a geopolymer. And
It makes it
so
just
this,
more solid, more dense, right?
yeah, more dense.
Okay.
More dense is the best way to say it. And if you sprinkle a little bit of magnesium in there, then you get like let's say if geopolymers give you 10,000, well, I mean, let's just say on a commercial side of things, 10 to 12,000 pounds per square inch of compression strength. Your magnesium cement with biochar is giving you about 8,000 pounds per square inch of compression strength. You go down to just concrete that just has biochar, you're around 4,000 pounds per square inch of compression strength. And then just normal standard concrete, if you have a good contractor that knows what they're doing, they're around 2,000 pounds per square inch
Hmm.
of compression strength.
That's fascinating stuff, man.
Yeah.
The biochar stuff. It's basically graphene, which is that something you would agree with?
Graphene technically is one molecule thick. So biochar, so let's put it this way. I know at the bottom of my pits of biochar, where I collect when I make it and then collect it before I distribute it, you get a lot of this like fine powdered, black, and that will settle. I know at the bottom of my pits, I have a lot of graphene there. I wouldn't know how to separate it. I wouldn't know how to get it down to one molecule thick, but it's there.
Right, right.
Like,
I mean,
I understand why they use it because I can see the benefits it has in biological systems. So, but it's there. You could say what they'll tell you is that they're taking to control the burn perfectly. Because I'm kind of a connoisseur on how to pyrolyze things. They'll probably take a strip that they can immediately in their manufacturing process. They'll probably have that strip of whatever carbon it is inside that strip, and then they'll put it under vacuum, and then they probably send a plasma charge through there. And then once that plasma charge happens, the way I could see them doing it is they would spin the vial, and then just like any other time when you're trying to separate particle sizes, they probably have this cone that's going down with separate, like, different size holes and variants, and they slide the carbon down there. And the smallest particle size is what they would call graphene. That's the way I think they would do it.
Yeah, one thing I've been studying is graphene quantum dots. And are you familiar with quantum dots, what they do and what capabilities they have and stuff like that?
I I I I do. I've read about it. I think the word quantum is dubious. It's like the word planet, or it's like the word NASA. Whenever I hear NASA, planet, quantum, I'm like, "Oh, I got it. You guys are I see what you guys are saying." It's like the little sleight of hand. It's just like, okay, now we're telling you a story. Because I've worked with people on at a probably the most professional level you can get with microscopy. Nobody can see past a certain size. So when they say quanta, ooh, all quanta means is count or number, amount. It's such a weak thing to say.
Yeah.
I understand it's a brand. And when they say that there's these things that are these like nano size and oh, it's nano. Maybe, maybe what we're seeing in like the microscopy side of things is like you can only have a certain magnification level. Past that, there's just a lot of math that's telling you what's there, meaning that you're seeing digitized photos. Or digitized pictures, which is very similar to like when they're telling you, oh, we see a
Yeah,
quasar.
spectroscopy and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we see a quasar that's 40 trillion light years away. No, you don't. Light, no, that's incorrect. So whether it's way, way, way out there or way, way, way down small, both become these mathematical stories that we're told about. And like even like I know enough about human biology to tell you like the whole nervous system thing for the way I was taught. I'm so glad that there's so many doctors now coming out and just telling the truth about it. Like
Hmm.
the nervous system, including the brain stem and the spine and like nerves, dendrites, neurons, all that stuff. Almost everything that we were shown in an anatomy book on a very small scale is an utter fabrication. It doesn't it doesn't work the way that we're told. So, when it comes to quantum dots, specifically what you're saying, I know what I've been told about it. I don't know how much I believe it.
Yeah, I almost think because I've been doing this study recently and where I'm trying to understand why the old world, the antediluvian world before the flood, right? And this world was very different than the one that we live in now, but I believe we are revisiting those days, or we're trying to we're trying to revisit what the ancient civilizations were very fascinated with. And for one thing, they were very fascinated with the metaphysical world. Like you can see
Mm,
this with the pyramids, the ziggurats, and all these things. People need to understand that these big pieces of architecture and construction, they were actually created to break from the sub-physical into the metaphysical,
mm,
or use the metaphysical world to then manipulate the sub-physical. And so like what I mean by that is you've got three things of matter pretty much. Well, just of creation, I kind of just break it down into these three things. You've got the physical, it's what you could see. It's what you can pick up and objectively go, yeah, this is a wrench, this is a glass, this is, an energy drink. That's you. And then the sub-physical is like, I need to use a tool of some sort from the physical to see the sub-physical, like red blood cells, organisms, bacteria, all this other kind of stuff. But the metaphysical is something that is of like, you know, of the spirit world, if that makes any sense.
yes.
And how we use the physical world today to manipulate the sub-physical for example, medication, right? You take a pill, you can see it, but when you ingest it, it actually manipulates the subphysical. It does things with, the receptors in the body, all of these microorganisms, right? Now, back in, before the flood, or even just maybe after the flood as well, where you had these civilizations that were just, fascinated and saturated with the occult. You could say occultists do this. They actually take the metaphysical world to manipulate the subphysical, if that makes any sense. Like, for example,
Hmm.
in the Bible, you had, Moses, through the power of God, casted his rod down in front of the Pharaoh, and his rod turned into a snake. Well, the Pharaoh's magi's at the time, I forget their name. I think they both start with a J. I can't remember it exactly, but both of his best magi's and sorcerers, they casted down their wands as well, and they also turned into a snake. But we know
Hmm.
that Moses' side was done by the power of God, but the magi's were done from sorcery, like magic, all this
Hmm.
kind of manipulation of, that metaphysical world. And I think that's kind of what science is trying to get into today with CERN and all this other kind of stuff. But the quantum, to me, is like another name that they're using, but it means metaphysical, if that makes any sense. Or maybe they're trying to use the subphysical nature of that to
Yeah,
access that metaphysical world.
I would agree. I think the same goes for when they use the word space. It's the metaphysical realm that they're
Hmm. Yeah.
space force. Trump's thing, space force.
I'm excited to
That
get into a space talk with you, man.
yes, yes. Space force is literally like you're saying. They're diving into the metaphysical. I always say like the subtle controls the gross.
Hmm.
You know, that's so true. Is like you can ask any parent, you can ask any person that deals with coaching, they'll tell you indirect communication is always the most effective because when you come at somebody directly, there's a confrontational energy and a defense mechanism that goes up. And so on a spiritual level, I think you're 100% right. They know that they just can't come out and say, "Hey, we're sorcerers." They
We're
have to feed you
scientists.
yeah, we have to feed you a story and we have to make up false idols. And
We
I
need
mean, I wish
funding.
I wish people would just understand just that one, like, come on, that one commandment, you shall have no false idols, like, no idols. All these authorities are false idols. So they sent up the whole operant conditioning thing from the Prussian school back in like the 1920s. I mean, literally, if you want your mind just to be blown by how long this process has been in order, watch this video of the Reese report. I believe it was G. Howard Griffith that did this video in the late 80s with the late Senator Norman Dodd. And Norman Dodd's people in 1951 or 52 were commissioned to do a communist study on these foundations, the Guggenheim Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Carnegie Foundation, like the five biggest foundations, the one that funds all the education, especially back then. His crack team of investigators go into the minutes of these foundations and they see, even though these are separate foundations, they all pretty much had the same minutes with the same, points to go at. And the points were, okay, we're going to take over the State Department of the government. We're totally, through incentivization of scholarships, going to take over the education department of the United States. It was just like one thing after another thing after another thing. And what they were essentially doing was they were building the false history system. They were going to put their PhDs at the head of these universities. Always, whenever you see a U and an N, run. It's just like when you hear the word space. Go the other direction, I swear to you.
But geez, we have
There
a UN. Oh gosh.
Well, that's my point. The
Yeah.
UN and UNESCO and all these things.
Oh
I've
yeah.
lived in countries where UNESCO was like the, let's just say, the communistic, you talk about pagan ideals, like the most obtuse, like this piece of grass is worth more than a human life. Like you talk about secular to a degree of like just utter absurdity. That's what UNESCO does. These World Heritage sites, which usually have a lot to do with like rewriting our history, right? So they create these World Heritage sites, and this is just goes back to what I was telling you in the Reese report. The Reese report, dude, they literally found that all of these foundations were utterly communistic. They were in league with the Lucifer Trust, which became the Lucius Trust, which, guess what? The charter member of the UN. And like they were ultimately like trying to essentially deconstruct what made the United States what it was and make it so that every single avenue, it's where we're at right now as a country, was atomized. So that each American felt atomized, which meant they felt completely separate, like they were an island unto themselves. And then that way the country people would ask to become part of a one world government, which by the way is all biblical,
I know
which
it.
is all part of the plan. And I'm just like, dude, they're following the beats. Like what I saw in the Reese report and what G. Howard Griffith explained in that, and then in his wonderful book, the creature from Jekyll Island, and then what you see in when you read the Agenda 21 white papers from the UN, it's the same thing. It's literally like let's literally atomize everybody across the planet. We'll use the disaster capitalism model of things. We'll use the, problem reaction solution things. We might have a nice little light party up in the sky with these nice holograms and the technology that they've been hidden. Did you see that stuff that happened in Florida last night, by the way?
No, what was going on?
Right above you.
I've been working for the past 3 days. It's been on a fire truck for the past 3 days.
Oh man, in my network on Telegram, like people are sending me all these like plasma trails, and then I saw this video on Instagram of this thing that looked like a Chinese lantern going across the
What?
sky, and then it split into two. But my best friend, he said like, dude, it left this neon circle. I'll actually send it to you in our DMs. Like it literally left a plasma ring in the sky for hours.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're trying to say, oh, Cape Canaveral, they launched a SpaceX thing. Well, guess what? My friends in New Zealand sent me the same thing. It happened in New Zealand. My friends in Austria sent me the same thing.
Ah, they're targeting different,
I don't think it's they.
geolocations.
I think so many of these things that we've been told are Starlink or this or that. I think these are like you just said, you brought it up. There's this metaphysical realm. There's angels. Heavens means above us. There are these angels that are at war with the forces that are here. And like, because how could that happen off 3 different continents at all at their own nighttime? That doesn't make any sense. If it was nighttime in New Zealand, that's not the same time it's nighttime in Austria, and that's not the same time that's nighttime in South Florida.
Right.
And by the way, we had a wedding here Saturday night, and I'm in the middle of Missouri, and I didn't see it, but the people that were, partying into the night, we had an outside reception, and they said above the tree line, there was this thing that looked like a Chinese lantern, and it blew them all away because like it was like the first time some people had seen a UFO. So I think so many of these aerial phenomenon, that are chalked up to drones or Iran's, Starlink. I don't think that so much. I think the more satanic side of things likes to take credit for things, and a lot of people are just gullible to believe them. I'm not so gullible with that. Like, I know I've seen very fast flying drones. I know I've seen other things like that that are like, whoa, that I know are militaristic. And then there's other things that I've seen. Like, I've been talking about the Bible with a friend, and then boom, a shooting star will go across the sky. That's a sign from God. That's not like something. You know how many times like the metaphysical or the supernatural side of things would be like, yes, here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It'll give signs, in the skies for signs and wonders. So I'm just like, I think a lot of times we give, I don't, but I know a lot of people wrongly attribute power and prowess to things that they shouldn't. It's not what they think it is.
Yeah, they really turn a lot of things secular, or they try to uh, perceive it, discern it, or explain it in such a worldly secular way, rather than,
Right.
hey, listen, we really don't know what is above us. We have this model that we think we know is how things are ran. And supposedly NASA's got the whole universe mapped out pretty much, and they can trace it all the way back to the Big Bang and all of this. And really, there's a few things that kind of disturbed me with that whole concept, because it is a belief system at the end of the day. Like, what they want us to believe that we're on, and how our universe is fabricated, and how it's uh, just how it's constructed, is a belief system.
Yes.
It's a worldly belief system.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm in total agreement. When I still believed in space, I was actually into like UFOs and aliens and stuff like that. And I moved to Central America, and my first neighbor down there, he was a retired gentleman that had worked for JPL. Like the last, 12 years of his professional career, he did security systems analytics for JPL. I knew nothing about JPL. This is my pre conspiratorial days, right? I had no idea what JPL was. But I'm thinking, hey, JPL, you guys are the eyes and ears for NASA. He's like, yeah. He's like, my years there, we processed and he used the word every single image, not photo, image from space. So I'm reading Victor Schauberger, and I'm studying all these natural philosophers from Europe. And Victor Schauberger posed this question. He had his 100 questions for science in like 1930. And he posed this one question. He goes, well, you say the sun is the source of our heat, but yet when we go up in the sky or we're on a mountaintop and we're supposedly closer to the sun, why are we colder? If that's the point source of heat, like when I walk towards my fire in my house, I get warmer. So how does that make sense that like the closer you go to this point source of heat, why is it that we get colder? And I'm reading, and that was like his most simplistic question. And then he was like, yeah, I think if you were to actually be able to go into what's called space, you wouldn't see any lights. Now, this is an Austrian dude in the 1930s, and he gave his reasons why. Then when you listen to Buzz Aldrin and the guys that supposedly went up and landed on the moon, they tell you, oh yeah, we didn't see any stars when we were up there. And I read this book that like all this stuff. I was into all of this stuff. And so I I was talking to Mike about this because Mike was the guy from JPL, and he couldn't really say anything to me. He was pretty cryptic with me, and he goes, Topher, I have a homework for you. He goes, I want you to find a photo of the sun in the visible light spectrum from space. I'm like, done. I'm on it. Go to an internet cafe, because like down there you had to go to internet cafes back then to access the internet. Every time I go, I couldn't find one. So I would email people I knew in the States that had good internet. I'm like, hey guys, I gave them the same homework. For like a year, nobody could find a photo of the sun in the visible light spectrum from space. And I'm like, Mike, what's the deal? What are they hiding from us? And he couldn't tell me it was all fake. He had to speak very cryptic. He's like, Topher, everything that you see that is quote unquote from space is an animation. JPL is in Anaheim, California. Like one of its processing plants in Anaheim, California. Guess what else is in Anaheim, California? Disney World. And then you look into the connections with Werner von Braun and Walt Disney, and all of it is just like, dude, they've been conditioning us as kids. What do they show kids all the time? Cartoons. Our nervous system relaxes when we see a cartoon because we're used to watching it ever since we've been able to see images. And then all space is now is cartoons for adults.
Yeah.
It's literally they will only fess up to that it's an image. An image isn't a photo. It's not a real thing. It's made up. Anything that you make on, AI with AI is an image. And none of this is in the image and likeness of God. All of this is in the image. It's a falsehood. It's not real.
Yeah.
And so Mike, in his most gentle way, was like giving me this like little, like, he was priming the pump. It wasn't until like another 7 years or 8 years later that the whole flat earth came about. Then my mind was really like, eviscerated. But but like I was just like, I was floored. Like, you would think the sun. To this day, you can't find a photo of the sun from space in the visible light spectrum for multiple reasons. One, you can't get into space. Two, even if you could get into space, the sun wouldn't be out there. The sun's not 93 million miles away. Like, I probably see 200 days out of the year, I'll see something called a corpusculescent ray or corpuscular ray. And that's when, like, you'll see the sun behind the clouds and then all the rays are coming out like at the angle of repose. I'm an architect. I design. I actually do 3D design in CAD. If I was to draw an angle of repose and everything like that, that's going to a point that is close. That's not something far away. If that thing was that as far away as they say it is, all the light would be coming in parallel to itself. It wouldn't be angling.
What gets me too is the fact that the sun and the moon are the same exact diameter. Like, they're the same exact size.
Biblically, like, God made the light for the greater and the lesser light. It's so simple. Like, if you're God, you're efficient. You're like, okay, boom, daytime, nighttime, boop, boop.
Right. Yeah, man.
Well, not this like, okay, so the sun is 400 times greater in size than the moon in diameter, but it's 400 times as far away to the earth. Like, the moon vacillates between 241,000 miles and 253,000 miles away from the earth at any given time. But the sun is 93 million to 94 million miles away, and that's exactly 400 times like it's all such BS.
Yeah, well, and in the Bible, right, Genesis 1:14, it says basically, when he's, it says, "And God said, let there be lights in the firmament and of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, for seasons, for days, and for years." And it's kind of amazing how really our sun and our moon, they really break up the the year and the 24-hour period, the 28-day cycle of the moon. Like, it's very it's so it's impressive,
Mhm.
because of just how it has fallen into place. I don't think it's fallen into place. I think it was created this way. That's my
Exactly.
point.
It's a perfect creation.
Yeah, and plus, how the moon and its phases throughout the 28-month cycle, or 28-day cycle, it's very consistent. Even the
Mhm.
all the way to Jewish, and I'm not, very intelligent on this, but even just these specific Jewish days with the blood moons and all of this stuff. I mean,
Mhm.
it's wild. It's
Yeah,
wild.
a friend of mine, Nicole Murphy, she took essentially the Book of Enoch, and she did a scientific breakdown of exactly what Enoch posted as the
This is
gates and
specifically in the Book of the Luminaries, correct? I
right.
believe so, yeah.
She has a perfect calendar. You can go forward and backward in time in it. It's a perfect calendar.
Hmm.
Because the new moon cycle is the variance in the moon. So like detractors of the moon calendar would be like, well, they say it's 28 days. Well, 13 times 28 is 364. What about the variance? A year is 365.14 days, It doesn't match up. Well, she's able to show that, each new moon cycle is actually not exactly the same amount of time. The new moon is the variance. And when you take her model, the 13th, that you'll have people that are into like the Mayan calendar and all this other BS. They'll be like, oh, there's 13 moons per year because they're only counting the 28 days where you can see light with the moon. But there's a variance between, it's anywhere from 28 to 44 hours where there is no light from the moon. That's called the new moon. Well, when you add those up, you have exactly 12 moons per year. In the 13th moon, what other people would consider the 13th moon is actually the first moon of the next year. So it's it's
Ooh.
it's 12 moons. And so this really pisses off a lot of hippies and new age people. They're like, "No, there's 13 moons and but this is exactly how the Jewish calendar works also, is it's a moon-based calendar as far as I understand. I think they started to implement the sun later down the road. And I shouldn't even call it Jewish calendar. It's a Hebrew calendar to begin with. Um, but yeah, her calendar is wonderful. I've interviewed her a couple times, and I'm thoroughly impressed between her calendar in working in concert with what's Thomas's last name? Thomas's son, his new solar calendar. The two of those they're just excellent for timekeeping, and they're both they're biblically based.
Yeah. Now, I obviously I straddle both ideas, but I don't discredit biblical cosmology. I don't. I'm just one of those guys where, like, man, what if it's not, so I kind of just I take both into consideration, but I do kind of favor the biblical cosmology point of view. And I don't know if you've ever talked with Josh Monday, but Josh Monday does a really good episode where he breaks down all the scriptures and he breaks down everything for you to kind of lay out what creation is to look like at the end of at the end of the lecture, pretty much. But it's
Mhm.
biblical cosmology is where create there's scriptures pertaining to creation, and one of those scriptures as well is where it talks about that the earth is fixed, it's immovable, And it lays on basically, a foundation. And so
Mhm.
my thoughts on that is where I forget who was it in the Bible, but basically they, you know, through the power of God, they were able to stop the sun, or God's kept the sun where it was at for multiple days.
Mhm.
Which, if you think about that, with gravity, with all of those other things, with how our Earth is rotating through space, that would just be impossible. But obviously not impossible for God. But what I'm saying is if you take the scripture that Earth is fixed and it's not movable, then
Mhm.
it's not God stopping the rotation of the Earth. It's actually Him stopping the sun from rotating around the Earth. That geocentric model is what I'm saying. You know what I'm
Well,
saying? Like he kept
I'll
the
take it
sun still. That
I'll
makes
take it
sense.
even one step further. Like, so there have been multiple uh helios sci- s- scientists. Like, there's this very specific type of telescope that will follow and track the sun. And these three different scientists on three different continents were like, we're going to put this whole flat earth thing to bed, this whole biblical cosmology thing. We're as secular as it gets. Enough said. They tracked the sun in their local environments over a year, and they threw all of the data into a Cray computer and said, hey, model this for us. Show us the truth. Now, by the way, these are the same type of tracking telescopes that NASA uses and all the rest of it, right? Like the Vatican. Well, needless to say, after they got the model from the Cray computer, each one of them were no longer secular. Because what it showed was the sun for each one of us is actually personal. There's a 13-mile arc, essentially, on average, that the sun travels for each one of us. It's not this universal thing. We think because everybody experiences it, everybody's experiencing the same thing. And this puts a whole new spin, like an utter, like, mind-blowing thing when you look at all of the. And by the way, I'm coming at this from a secular scientific, like, we are going to measure angles. We're going to do all the things. The sun is not it's not this one thing that from an objective reality perspective, we're all experiencing that same one thing. It is not that. Each one of us does experience the sun, yes. And each one of us does experience a moon, yes. Is it the same? It is not. And what they showed in this documentary that they did is, like, what blew their mind the most, because they were seeing that was a point of perspective thing. It's like what I brought up with the corpuscular rays. When you stand anywhere where the sun is emitting, the light is always coming to you. So you could have two people on opposite sides of a lake, one facing one direction, say east, and the other one facing the other direction, west. No matter what, the light ray on the water is coming to you, the observer. It's almost like, now, I'm not saying that Jesus is the sun, but I can see why in all the art in the medieval ages, they showed the sun behind him and how he was the life giver. He was the sustainer. He was that which was, like, brought prosperity and like brought you to the Father is and why they likened it to the Son, because when you actually take the Sun model out of the secular model and actually just get to experience it as an agriculturist, as a gardener, as somebody that's like actually bare feet on the ground making soil, the sun isn't something that's way, 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 way far away. It's not. And it's a mind bender because we each experience something that we call the sun, but we make the assumption that we're all experiencing the same sun.
Hmm. That's interesting, man. I mean, there's so many other things, right? Like there's the idea of when you work out a lot of the mathematics with the rotation of the sun, with how fast the sun is going, or the Earth is going around the sun, with how fast the Earth is traveling through space. It's everything kind of has like a 666 numerical behind it of some
Yeah,
sort.
we're not at 90 degrees. We're at, what do they say it is? We're 23.4 degrees off axis, which makes our from the plane or the horizon makes us 66.6 degrees. They're
Yeah,
lying.
man.
They're lying. They're literally effing with you. I can tell you, like, when you start to get into it, like, okay, once again, getting back to the Schauberger thing, they tell us in the Northern Hemisphere what makes us cold during the winter is that we're tilted away, yet we're closer to the sun. Well, I've lived at the equator during quote unquote winter, and it's not hotter. You would think everybody would be melting to death if we were closer to the point source of heat.
Uh-huh.
There's so many, like, and by the way, I'm not saying I even know what this realm actually is. I don't. I just know biblically saying it's like, okay, this is a flat, immovable thing. It's stationary. And then we got all this other stuff going on. Okay. But I know what it's not. It's not this sphere spinning at over 1,000 miles per hour. Because by the way, I've had to engineer very, very fast spinning things in some of my inventions. And so if you have a sphere, if you have a ball, like anybody can think of spinning a basketball on their middle finger. You spin the basketball on your middle finger. If you were to put a reflective dot on the equator, on the middle of the basketball, and then put the same dot at the top, near the top of the ball, and then you were to shoot a laser at it that would tell you the RPMs, which means rotations per minute. Guess what, everybody? If the center is spinning at 1,000 miles per hour, which is what we're told is happening, guess what the top of the ball is spinning at? It's not 1,000 miles per hour. Well, what would it be? It's proportional to the distance. Well, the radius of our Earth, they say, is like 3,800 miles. It's something like the top would be spinning at like 4,500 miles per
Hmm.
hour. Why don't they adjust for the time?
Hmm. Oh, it's interesting. Yeah.
Because it's not true. They don't adjust for the time because you don't have the same rotation of speed at the equator as you would at the top of the ball. So guess what? That model doesn't work. It's just that simple. Because we all know, hey, there's 24 hours in a day. No matter where you are in the world, we can set our clock to it, 24 hours in a day. Well, the 24 hours is set by the speed in their model. Well, I know spherical geometry. I build spheres for for my life. Guess what, guys? If that top is spinning, it's supposedly and it's connected to the same thing at the center, the top, because it's a much smaller diameter, would be
Hmm.
spinning much, 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 much faster. You don't
Right.
have any rates of change between like Stockholm, Sweden and Helsinki, Finland and like, Ecuador.
Yeah.
They don't change the difference in the time.
That's funny, dude. I didn't think of that before. But so I work with hydraulics. Like, I'm an engineer at my department. So I work with pumping a truck, right? So I, what's
Nice.
funny is we have a big impeller, right? But then
Yes.
we have like a high booster line, which has its own small, tiny impeller. And the whole purpose of it being a fourth of the size of the main impeller is because when water goes into it from the main impeller, it has more RPM, so it's able to build up more pressure, which
That
means
there it
you
is.
see what I'm
You
saying?
got it.
Yeah.
You
So
got it.
I can relate to it that way. So I see that, man. And when you look at it from the beginning, you look at kind of where a lot of this heliocentric model stuff where it came from, because people need to also consider that the ancients, right, like the people of the old world, like they had a model of what this world may have looked like, and it was all this kind of flat earth. It was all kind of flat earth model, and it
Mhm.
wasn't until the Vatican Church, right, it wasn't until the Romans decided to, which these people were occultists as well, by the way, they decided to merge religion and science. And I think that's why, another thing why the Vatican was created, because it was nothing more than merging uh, paganism with Christianity to develop what I know as today is like it's Babylon, it's the Babylonian religion. But with all that, you had these occultists and you had these people who had a secular worldview, and I think the whole reason why they were maybe influenced to start this heliocentric model is because they're working for their father, right? Like their father Satan. And I
Mhm.
think that plays a huge role in Satan's agenda and Satan's plans, and for especially for Satan's end time goals and objectives, is to build and is to condition and to fabricate a world for people to believe in that opposes God, right?
Mhm.
Like where if the earth was known worldwide that it was flat, everything goes out the window. The aliens go out the window.
Mhm.
God comes back, right? Like God, now people are like starting to go, oh man, the Bible, they start
Mhm.
gravitating towards the Bible. So when you create this secular world with all the different divisions in it, it really, it just brings more people to error or
Definitely.
illusion, if that makes sense.
Totally. Totally. I mean, I had some things in my personal life that were working in conjunction with like when I was shown flat earth. And the combination of those two things brought me knee deep back into the Bible because I couldn't square the circle of like the biblical cosmology relative to what I was being taught in secular school at all. And it is a religion like scientism. I've done many a podcast on the notion of scientism because it is an ism.
Yeah.
and and scientism I was indoctrinated in. It was a cult of Khan. I was completely into it because my hope was in science. My hope was in like Star Trek and the New Frontier and all this other stuff. My hope wasn't in God. My hope wasn't in going to heaven. And then when I saw it fully, it was like the spell break that occurred because I was under a spell. I was under this conditioning of the secular atomist model. And when that spell was broken in 2015, I had a conjunction of other things that were going on in my personal life where I was having very real experiences around people that were possessed. And the only thing that would clear this space and like solve the problem was Jesus Christ. So the combination, like I can't say that the timing wasn't the way I should say it is the timing was perfect for me to let go of this like I'm well educated, I'm smart, I know. And I had to let it all go and be like, be humbled, genuflect to God and be like, I don't know. How is it the name Jesus Christ? Now, this was the thing that blew my mind about using the words Jesus Christ was I didn't even believe in it, and it worked. So my logical mind was like, this is so powerful that whatever was causing that, let's just say whatever demon or spirit was in that being knew the jurisdiction and the power of Jesus Christ more so than I did. So that was like humbling as all get out. Because I was of the mind that I had to believe in it. Like I had to be a believer. And I was just literally using it as a last resort. Like I had no other, I was out of bullets. I had no other ammunition. I just used I just had this memory. I had somebody like say, oh, if you ever find yourself in this situation, either call on Archangel Michael or call on Jesus Christ. I called on Jesus Christ and boom, like everything was done. And then like not more than like a couple days later, this whole thing with the flat earth falls in my lap. And I didn't believe that either. I thought people were idiots. And then after a couple of weeks of the flat earth and this whole thing with the possession thing that happened around me, I was like, the Bible is right.
Yeah,
this,
it's the
this,
spiritual battle, brother. Like, for your mind, for how you're thinking,
dude,
everything.
I was completely in that secular woke, what they call it, unhinged feminine vibration. Like I was totally like going down that
That's Mystery
avenue.
Babylon.
Yeah.
Mystery Babylon is a woman.
Yeah.
Like there's many things that could go into Mystery Babylon, and since I've been researching it a lot lately, um, I was attacked in my sleep by a woman. This was not too long ago, and I it just clicked for me the day after or after it happened, where I was like, oh my goodness, like I put it together. I was like, I'm trying to expose Mystery Babylon on my podcast with people at work. I'm trying to get people, aware of what it is and how it dwells within the earth. And it is of the earth. Like it's the familiar spirit. It's this spirit of the world that the world worships and they don't really know it. Um, and I got literally attacked in my sleep, man. Like it was crazy. It was by a woman.
Mhm. So
um,
would you say Mystery Babylon is what people call Gaia?
I think it is. So what's Gaia?
Gaia is known as the feminine earth, like the spirit, like
Yes.
the earth is from an indigenous, Native Americans perspective, the earth is the mother and her name is Gaia.
So what really? Yes, yes. The answer to the question is yes, because what brought me to the full understanding of Mystery Babylon was not only just studying Nimrod, who his wife was, Semiramis, and who their son was Tammuz. This is the same. This so when you look at all the religions in the world, there's a trinity. There's a trinity godhood in all of the religions of the world, and all of
Uh-huh.
the religions of the world are on a plane. They all sit in level with each other, and this is all ran and conducted by Mystery Babylon. But the reason why Mystery Babylon takes on a female, uh, you know, uh, identity is because when Nimrod died, Semiramis actually became the one that was ruling over Babylon, and she supposedly had an immaculate conception, and it was because a beam of sun, which was Nimrod, right? Because he was the sun god. Semiramis was the moon god. Tammuz was the stars. So when you're reading in Exodus, you're reading in Deuteronomy, and you see that Moses is basically telling you over and over again, like, stop worshiping these things in the sky. It's because all the people have continued this culture and this religion ever since the Tower of Babel was dispersed. That's
Mm,
why you have all of these religions with this Trinity aspect of it. But God is the true, the biblical God is the true Trinity. It's just that Satan was counterfeiting what God
mhm,
had created. So you had these three that, Semiramis had this beam of light from the sun shine on her, and it impregnated her because it was the spirit of Nimrod that impregnated her. And this is where Tammuz is born, but Tammuz, the sun, is just the reincarnation of Nimrod.
mm,
So this is where you get all of the apotheosis rituals. This is why we have a dome and an obelisk in Washington, D.C., because it's the ancient Egyptian Osiris ritual, which goes back to Isis and Osiris giving birth to their son, right?
mm,
It's all the same thing. It's why the light shines off of the top of the obelisk in Washington D.C. and then hits the dome of the Capitol building. The dome is the belly, the impregnation of
mm,
that ancient ritual. The obelisk is the phallus of Osiris that was, missing from the 14 pieces of him being cut up, which they only found 13, which you can see now how our country was actually developed, by
mm,
occultists because we had the 13 colonies. It was all ancient. It's all this ancient Nimrod worship, man. And it's because the Antichrist will be that Nimrod of the world. It'll be that Maitreya that is talked about not only by Alice Bailey, right, with the Lucifer
mm,
Trust Company, Lucis Trust, the
mhm,
Maitreya of Shambhala. It's like this world leader who is to show us all the way of how for us to be gods, if that makes sense. But Mystery Babylon takes on that female nature, and the Bible talks about this spirit being the sensual spirit. Like it says sensual specifically because women are sensual. It's just how they express themselves with their creation. But what's fascinating about all of it is that, like I said, you have this plane and you got all these religions on it right now. And they all worship the divine goddess, believe it or not, because that goes back to ancient Babylonian religion. And
mhm,
that's why John is calling it Mystery Babylon. It's because it's this mystery, number one, because it's the same religion, but it changes over time. It went from Gnosticism to other religions, and then it went to Theosophy, then it went to New Age. Now I actually think it's a part of the church, which is called like the New Apostolic Reformation, which this is where you can see some of these churches are talking about a lot of things of the occult. They're actually saying that this the prosperity churches, right? It's like where you're good enough, you're God,
mhm,
you're free, you don't have to, you're free in Christ and all this stuff. Like, yes, but they really say all this like Lucifer's their God. And you're the one that's being liberated. Like you don't have to follow the law anymore. You don't have to do any of this. It's what took place in the garden. And all of this
mm,
religion stems from where it all started, and that's in the Garden of Eden. And I think that this mystery Babylonian religion, which is the religion of the world, and it was the serpent's religion. It was what was Cain. It's what Cain took out of the garden and started in rebellion against God, you know.
mm,
So that's kind of like my thought process on it, and I'm still going deeper with it, right? But when you think of mystery Babylonian religion, and also on top of what you were saying with Mother Earth and there's a divine goddess worship in this world. Well, I think that Lucifer and the fallen angels, they have chosen to take the nature of femininity.
mm,
And I believe that there's a false Holy Spirit in this world.
Mhm.
The new age, and it's this spirit of like positivity and all this kind of, I mean, it's way more than that, but I'm trying to compare, the Holy Spirit versus a familiar spirit, which it looks like it. It looks like the Holy Spirit, but it's actually it's feminine in nature. And why I think Satan, Lucifer, the devil, and the fallen have chosen this is because number one, it blasphemes the real Holy Spirit, which is
Mhm.
which is man, and this isn't against anything about women. This is just the order and the structure of how God created things. Um, and the other, that spirit of the world also shows balance and unity. You could see that with all the religions right now because they're talking about it. They're talking about, oh yeah, we're all talking about the same thing. We're just in a different aisle, or we're all in the same supermarket. We're all just different aisles.
Right.
And so what I see what the devil's doing, at least today, and I'll shut up after this, but I see him taking Christianity, which is not on, it was never on the same plane as these other religions, and what he's doing is he's moving it up to be on the in as it, to be on the same level with all the other religions of the world, so that when all the other religions come together into one by this Maitreya, that that's where we get the falling away of the church, because you're going to
Mhm.
have the church falling into this one world religion, and they may be the spearhead of it actually.
Well, it sounds to me very like the Catholic Church of what I experienced in Central America, because the Catholic Church is like all about Mother Mary worship. Like they
No, Queen of
rarely
Heaven, there you go, you got it. Yeah.
they rarely ever even like get into the Father or the Son, or they're like no, like
Well,
the
the pope
Catholic
the pope
the
said something one time where he's like, the road to heaven is through her, and that is the false Holy Spirit. They're giving it this divine feminine nature, and that's not the Holy Spirit. Like, that is Gnosticism.
yeah.
Are you familiar with Gnosticism?
Yeah,
With
yeah,
with like
I
with
studied under
Sophia
John Lamb
and
Lash for 3 years, like, directly, like
yeah, and I
yeah,
and go ahead.
yeah, the whole Sophianic mystery school and, her fall from the pleroma and, like,
Mhm.
this space is, like, her unconscious creation, and so, yeah, I'm very well aware of that. What you're saying is kinda remind me of I'm interviewing Nathaniel Gillis soon, and
Same here. Nice.
oh, cool.
Yeah.
And, like, he's very big in showing, like, all these, essentially, what we would call supernatural occurrences. His theory is that they're all kind of under this ultra terrestrial, what he's terming an ultra terrestrial, that changes and morphs, just like what you're saying. It learns, like, let's say this false Holy Spirit, like you're saying, it learns and it adapts. And I think that's so true, because the one time I had a direct, immediate, like, my own direct experience with the demonic force was it came at me one way, like super ferocious, nearly scared me to death. I totally had my angels with me, like the whole thing, and I was signaled, "Fear not, you know, demons don't have any power, they only have influence." And so I was just looking at it, and it instantly adapted. Once it knew I wasn't scared of it, it then tried to become attractive. Either way, it was trying to influence me one way or the other. It was either gonna influence me through fear, or it was gonna influence me through attraction. But it didn't have any real power, because if that was God and God wanted me to be put down, I would have been put down. That's power. these beings, these false entities, like these, I shouldn't call them false entities, these entities that present false faces. If it is like your theory posits, where it's this false, Maitreya, like, or not, this false Holy Spirit, it is this adaptable thing. That's what I'm really liking about Nathaniel's work, is like he's like really mapping that out, and that sounds similar to what you're talking about.
Yeah, and what also pushed me even like further down this road was the only place in the Bible where Lucifer is mentioned. And yes, I know that the Latin Vulgate put it in there. That's why Lucifer is called this. And in the Hebrew, it's actually, Hallel or Halel. But that's the meaning of light bearer, right? So
Mhm.
it actually talks about in that same verse in Isaiah, it calls, Lucifer the son of the morning. And so the son of the morning is actually Venus, where you can kind of see it off the horizon just as the
Yeah.
sun's rising. And then when the sun, raises up a little bit more, you can't see it anymore. Well, Venus is a female goddess, so
Hmm.
there's these connections that you can make with the nature of Lucifer. Um, and that just means the light bearer. Some people have some mixed views on this. Where is it talking about one specific entity? Is it talking about multiple entities? Is it talking about a team? You know, they, I mean, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you can speculate on that all day and all night. But the idea is that it's showing you the nature of this light bearer. When I was looking at the city of New York and looking at some of the things that it's uh, called, and some of the things that surround it. Well, you have the fact that New York City is called the Big Apple, right? And there's
Hmm.
this idea that Eve ate an apple off of the tree, but really it's just called fruit in the Bible. The apple is the pop cultural thing to get you kind of like conditioned to that. Um, but there's also another thing there that kind of is very interesting, and you have Lady Liberty.
Right.
Lady Liberty being the light bearer.
Hmm.
And also there's a chain that's broken that's connected,
Right.
to the leg of it. Now I've heard say, and I respect everyone with their eschatological views, because it can get kind of crazy with all that stuff, and there's a lot of interpretations behind it. But I'm open to a lot of things. I do favor one side of certain eschatology. But when I look at that, it's an androgynous being, in my opinion. It's a
Yeah.
lady, which means its overall nature is female, but it looks like it has a male face and a
Yeah.
male forearm, by the way. Like the arm is huge, right?
Yes.
Um, and it's got one hand up, one hand down. We know that that's symbolic for as above, so below. And it's got seven, it's got a crown on its head with with seven spikes, which you can see that throughout all the other religions as well. That there's this reoccurring thing with seven, on its head. And so biblically, that kind of resonates to the beast rising out of the sea for me, right? Because there's a connection there with it being specifically on the head and having the number seven within it, because the beast has seven heads but 10
Mm.
horns, and that stuff is broken down, through an angel to John to give him discernment of what that is. The horns are kings, the heads are mountains, hills, things like this. Washington D.C.
Hmm.
has seven mountains, or hills. Vatican has seven hills. Rome had seven hills. So there's
Mm.
paganism behind it, is my opinion. But the chain makes me think of that this is Satan, because it's
Hmm.
liberty, it's the liberator, it's
Right.
Gnosticism, it's the fact that Sophia, supposedly sent Lucifer down to free us from the demiurge and from the chains that he put on us. If that makes any
Mm.
sense. So he was the liberator who broke the chain, because some people do kind of talk about the little season, and that this is when Satan was released out of the pit and stuff like this, which,
Hmm.
I mean, maybe, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, I'm dogmatic about something that I can't prove.
Right.
But it's interesting.
Yeah, I definitely see Lady Liberty as being an androgyne. I lean in the Little Season direction just because of architecture and just because of buildings. Um, the historical narrative that we're given doesn't it it, it makes absolutely zero sense relative to the structures that were built. And the nice thing about my life is I've had the opportunity to build in undeveloped areas. I am like the person you should talk to if you want an off-grid building being built in the forest or the jungle. That's my expertise. And oh, guess what? I build things with columns and domes. I'm the man. I'm telling you, the stories in the way, oh, we got these like, millions of tons of X, Y, or Z material in this area. And we built this, this, and this, and this with this amount of people, with this population in this time frame. Nope. And the reason why I gravitate towards the Little Season, and this is just my own bias, I'm not saying I'm right, this is just my bias. I've been in cathedrals. I've been in what's known as a what do they call it? Neo
Neoclassical? Is that
Greco
okay?
neoclassical Greco-Roman structures. I've been all over the world. I've been in buildings where when I walked into the building, it wasn't that I was like perceiving all the architectural niceties of it. And then that made me like inspired. I walked into the building and my heart opened and I was having a communion with our creator, like the creator. And like, it was just like, these were built by inspired people. These were not built by wage slaves. And they definitely were not built by wage slaves in the time frames, in the conditions that we were told that they were built. There's just no way. Like nobody can convince me differently. And so also there's so much there to show. Like I lived in two different countries where I watched them do censuses. And I've been writing about this since 2010. The census is a lie. I've known forever the amount of people that they say there are, they're not. Like it's a complete lie. Like there's no way that there's the amount of people that they say there are. Like living in India where it's like, 1.6 billion people or whatever. I lived there for 2 years. Like, no, there's not. Like, I was in Costa Rica when they did their census, and it was so funny. I was watching them walk down the road, and they would have like volunteers going to each house and like taking down the census numbers, and that's how they got their numbers. And when I was moving there, they said, okay, there's 3.6 million people. And the census was done in 2000. In 2010, by the time they tabulated the census numbers, it came out in 2011. There's 6 million people in Costa Rica. No, the population just doesn't double in 10 years anywhere. That's an impossibility. Well, then when you find out, oh, well, most countries get their fiat from the World Bank by their population numbers. Well, once you figure that out, it's like, of course they're going to lie about their numbers. Because that's how they get their debt.
Right.
If I have more people, then I have more money to borrow. Like I have more debt to borrow against. So people have been lying about all these numbers. And so what happens like when, the Covidius minimus hits everywhere. All these people drop dead. No, they didn't. They weren't even there to begin with. I have like, not to say that people didn't die because people die anyway. Like the mortality rates stayed the same. They didn't spike. So given the death rate stayed the same, yes, of course, we all are going to have people that die in our life for whatever reason. but it didn't go up at all with COVID. But all these people disappeared. Only the fake people disappeared. Like right now in China, we're like, just a few years ago, you heard, oh, China's approaching 2 billion people. In their last census that they did, they're like, oh, yeah, we're missing like 450 million people. They're not missing 450 million people. Those 450 million people never existed to begin with. These numbers are all inflated for loans. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so like
Hmm.
this goes into the whole thing with the timeline that makes the little season make sense, because the first person that turned me on to census lying was Anatoly Fomenko. And he was a very smart dude over there in Russia that was like, look, even with all the death and pestilence that history says, let's say all of that's true. If history is as long as they say it is, we should have something like, I think he said 16 billion people here. And I think he wrote that in like 2008 or 2009, right? He's like, there's too few people. Like in Mother Russia at the time, there was like 230 million people. He's like, if we literally had in the modern era 2008 years, we should have a lot more people, like a lot more. And so he started to go through the statistical analysis of all these stories in history and just found that most of history is just a rinse and repeat. The Jesuits just kept recopying, copying. And dude, I know that to be so true. Like one of the uglier sides of human nature is people tell tall tales. They'll listen to somebody else's story, they'll copy it, and then make it their own story and make it bigger. And we know governments do that. Governments will tell us, hey, there's yellow cake over in the Middle East. We got to go kill some folks. Well, yeah, let's go do it. Like, no, it's absurd what we're told and what people will believe, right? So if you take, in my own life experience, I've seen 2 censuses where they were utterly incompetent to get any real numbers. We know that people are incentivized to lie about their population numbers. And then we also know if time is as long as they said it was, whoa, we'd have a lot more people. I think, and then you look into stratigraphy, and I'm a biochar expert. That's my other expertise. When you look in the stratigraphy around every continent, there's this line of biochar. It's 1 inch thick, and it goes through the strata of every single country. Well, I already explained when we started, biochar only happens in a low oxygen environment. And guess what? Where that line is very correspondent with the fall of Jerusalem. And what does it say biblically would happen during that time? I forget the word. I always misquote the word. I misquoted it in an interview the other day. I said centering. What does it say? God returns with what type of heat? It's it's a word that is like stating like the
Scorched,
it's like
maybe?
ultra hot heat. It's like some brilliant word. I always misquote it. Well, he returns, and like when you look at the meltology of things, like I have friends of mine that live in California, and on the PCH, there's this massive, what you would think is like this organic rock wall. And friends of mine go up to it and take photos, and there's literally inlaid brick in that wall, in the rock.
So I see
I've been
here it says, according to Christian and biblical tradition, when God returns in the second coming of Jesus Christ, it will be with a punishing and consuming flaming fire.
Oh, that's a new translation. Like when you look
Yeah.
at it in the King James version, it has a better word for it.
Okay.
It's an awesome word. I just forgot what it is. But like I was telling you when we started, like that biochar happens in an oxygenless environment or a very low oxygen environment. That sounds like only God could do it if it's on every continent around the world. And guess what? If you had Jesus come back, let's just say, just as a thought experiment, I'm not
Mhm.
saying it's real because none of us can prove it. Jesus comes back, he's ruling with an iron rod. Well, you only rule with an iron rod if you got some miscreants out on the edges, right? And you pay your tribute, you get your rain, you have all this great stuff. More than likely, I would feel like if I'm in the presence of Jesus and I'm in my Christic body around Jesus, I'd live a little bit longer. In my short 49 years on life, I've accomplished a lot, like learned a lot, done some things, right? Imagine if I got to live 10 times that long. Maybe I could build some cathedrals. Maybe if I lived 20 times that long, maybe I could build some of these incredible buildings. And my friend Paul Stobbs, he said it so perfectly. He goes, whoever built these buildings overbuilt them. I'm telling you, Stephen, there's no reason to build walls that are 40 inches thick. There's no reason to do it unless something massive is coming.
Hmm.
Like some of these, like I think it was the City Hall of Philadelphia when they were going to demolish it in the 60s or something like that. The commissioner of the city came back to the mayor, was like, we'd go bankrupt trying to demolish this thing. We can't. The walls are 4 feet thick. Like whoever built this, they built it to be permanent. That sounds like Jesus to me. That sounds like, let's do this and let's do this right. Let's have it be inspirational. Let's make sure I'm ruling with an iron rod. Let's go. You're in your Christic body. You're building things with perfect proportion. And it's just amazing because we see in our day and age, like you're dealing with your contractor right now. Dude, people build things to get in and get out. They're not building for permanence. And we have relative convenience now. We have food on every corner. We have water, electricity, good roads, ingress, egress. We have all these things. And even with all that, we build things that, if we're lucky, will last 100 years.
Right.
If we're lucky. We're told hundreds of years ago, without any of those conveniences, they literally built things that are indestructible. While they're fighting a two-front war, while they got the Britons up their butt, while the natives are trying to kill them, and they're having to grow all their own food, and they have enough free time with a population that's 1/100th of what it is right now, with less people with more responsibilities. No,
Well, you mentioned
I'm
something earlier too, where you walked into one of these. So you walked into one of these buildings, right?
Mhm.
And you had this. Was it an experience or was it a feeling where you kind of you felt something? Right? Is this something like an
I was in a
experience you had?
cathedral in Ghent, Belgium, and I walked into it, and Ghent is like a very old city. It's like an all cobblestone city on this, I forget what river that is in Belgium. And I walked in, and I didn't even know it was a cathedral from the outside because they were modernizing it. So there was scaffolding all around, and I walked into it because it was just open to the public, and I had this full experience of God. This is before any of eh, before flat Earth, before the little season, any of this stuff. I
Mm.
was still in that secular mode of life, and I was just like, I just knew that our provider provides. I just knew that God.
Do you think
I
it
just
did something to the subphysical in your makeup?
Oh
Because there's
yeah.
just I've heard JT, I've heard Paul, and they I've had both of them on the show, but I've also I think I remember having conversations with them where we got into like bells and bell
Hmm.
technology.
Yeah.
You know, but that bell technology kind of just brings me back to the architecture. And is this something that is the, doing something to the subphysical realm from the metaphysical? You kind of get what I'm trying to say. I'm like, if this could, let's say it was built in the 1,000-year reign of Jesus Christ,
Mhm.
technically that would be like, heaven on earth. Which is what, the Gnostics want. And this is why they're pushing towards this one world ruler idea and stuff, because they do want heaven on earth.
I actually never got the feeling that in reading the Bible that 1,000-year reign was heaven on earth, because Jesus, they're pretty emphatic that Jesus was going to rule with an iron rod, and that, the devil would be loosed again. I didn't see heaven on earth until the great white throne judgment. In my own consciousness,
Mhm.
I never likened Jesus, the millennial reign, ever to that being heaven on earth. Because another point of focus for me for a long time, because I do deep tissue myofascial release, is until I came across the I guess you'd call it the little season metaphysics, like the cosmology of the little season, I was trying to square the circle of how is it I've worked on people that look like people but don't read as human.
Mm.
And when you get into like how many people are out there that come from orphans, especially like the orphan train thing that occurred in the US, in the turn of the 20th century. I did a poll amongst the 3,000 people in my Telegram group, and dude, it was like 1 in 10 or 12 people in
And
their lineage
really?
had had a great grandparent whose parent was an orphan on an orphan train. And so what I was trying to do was I worked on a group of people from Eastern Europe like 6 or 7 years ago, um, at this retreat center, and they were all like Ukrainian, Bulgarian descent. And a few of them, they didn't read, like they looked human. They had a pulse, they were breathing. It wasn't like they were an automaton, but they were like, I don't know how to explain it. It just blew my mind. They were like empty vessels.
Mm.
And I was interviewing Dave Murphy, and he kind of put it together for me. He said, "Do you know who allegedly Dave is? Dave Murphy?
Dave
He's a
Murphy.
black Israelite. Um, he's a really cool British guy. You should have him on. He's a
Oh, I
really
think,
great
does
interview.
he do like TikToks and stuff?
I
Or
don't know. I'm not on TikTok.
okay, I
He
might have seen
might.
him.
He's a
Okay.
really cool. He goes by allegedly Dave. He's awesome. So I had allegedly Dave on the pod, and he is like, what area of the world had the largest concentration of orphanages during COVID? And I was like, no. And he was like, the Ukraine. And when the war happened, when the war descended upon the Ukraine, over 2 million orphan refugees were released upon the population. That instantly brought me back to my experience of massaging a bunch of these Eastern European, they might as well have been orphans. I can't give you the full context of it. And then going back to all these people I've interviewed that are within my community that I've spoken to, and it's just like you would not believe the amount of people that come from an unknown origin. Well, that just brings me to the little season, because there's literally in some of these orphanages, and then because you'll hear people say a lot of the orphans that were on orphan trains was because there were a bunch of women that were having children out of wedlock, and also you had a lot of people that were dying in industry, this, that, and the other, like the parents were disappearing. But when you actually read some of the internal newspapers from a lot of these insane asylums, most people were in there because they did not believe the what was being promulgated from a religion perspective. Like they were actually in remembrance of the time that Jesus was there.
Really?
Now I'm making that leap. There's only two that Paul has read both of them, and so has JT. But it's like literally like the internal like papers of some of these insane asylums, because these insane asylums were huge. They were everywhere. They were taking the people, this is my theory, is that they were taking the people that weren't willing to like buy into the new world and all the stuff that they were promoting through the world's fairs and things like that. The people that were still like, oh, hey, we know that Statue of Liberty is Lucifer. We know that. Oh, you're insane. You're insane. You're insane. And like, oh, okay. And now you have all these kids. And then you look at what was the whole thing that a lot of these orphans, the orphan thing happened right after the incubator baby thing of the World's Fairs. Why would you go to a fair and pick up a kid from an incubator? Like that sounds like that's an absurdity. And the Cabbage Patch Kid thing in Europe is just like, what was going on? And I think what occurred, given how beautiful and how permanent the architecture was if you're to believe the stratigraphy of the North American continent, Northern Africa, and the European continent, including Russia, if you're to believe the strata, there was essentially 700 or 800 years added to our timeline, which also fits with Anatoly Fomenko's data. And because the way they built in the 100s Anno Domini was the same way they built in the 800s of Anno Domini. That makes no sense. People don't build the same. They don't do the same things over an 800-year period of time. And by the way, there's nothing prior to the Roman. There's like no relics that you find pre-Roman. Everything's built on the bones of the Roman Empire. Like Roman bathhouses that you find on every continent, those are like the first. That's like that. Everything's built on top of that. So to me, it all points to, oh, wow. Okay, there was a flood. There was Noah's flood. This is so biblical. It's like full on. But the way the devil lies is he's given permission in the Bible to like, he'll change the time and date. Like it says it. So like literally, Jesus comes back just like he said he would. I believe Jesus, he said, hey, some of you here shall not taste death before the return of Son of Man. Like he said it. Like, so I believe it. He comes back 70 AD or whatever it was. We don't know the exact date. There's 1,000 years, just like the Bible says. Okay, he ascends, with the camp of the saints and all that. The devil is loosed for a little season. Ta-da! Lucifer on the libertine. You have the French Renaissance. You have all these things that are all like born totally out of vice, and then you just watch the descent of man over the last couple hundred years. We're not more moral, we're not like everything is in a state of entropy. Let's be honest about it. Well, that entropy is because we're getting further and further and further away from being close to our source of life, right? And so, I'm not black-pilled. I'm not upset about it because I know the ultimate end, right? But to me, it just makes sense. And then you look at all the shenanigans that they're doing in the North Pole now, or towards the north. I did this series with Madeline of leaving Babylon. It's just like you have you have Trump wanting to buy what is it, Greenland or Iceland? I forget which one it is.
Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah.
You have all these movements of like, that are essentially concentrating energy up towards the north. And then there's this massive swath of land that nobody wants to talk about that's above the Bering Straits. Like where the international date line is runs right through this area where you lose 3 hours. Well,
Where the Mars rover is.
no, that's on the other side.
Yeah, right.
That's 180 degrees around. No, I'm talking about like literally, I think there's an area there that, to me, it would make sense because we've been lied to about our calendar. We've been lied to about our history. Of course, they're going to lie to us about the map, like, of course,
Mhm.
like
Well,
that. I mean,
it's possible. I will say that, man. I mean, the amount of information that people are programmed with, the propaganda, the psychology behind it. I think, if anything, World War V is, already going on, and that's with how we think. I
hmm
mean, with the whole everything we
yeah,
covered this episode has been about things that people are not naturally coherent about. They
no,
you know what I'm saying? Like they have no idea what we're talking about. I mean, at least the normal person. Um, but that's how it is, and I think that's one of the biggest tactics for Satan is to take us from a very early point in our lives in childhood and to condition us so that when we become adults, then we teach our kids the same thing. And so it kind of like allows us to do the work for him. If that makes any
right.
sense. You know.
Yeah, man, it's the duper's delight. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, and then the little season stuff is it is interesting. I'm not fully discrediting it or casting it, off the table. Like how I go about things is everything's on the table so that when things start to unveil or unfold or, you know, start to change throughout the world, if I think that's what really helps with having the best discernment that you can is by
hmm
having everything on the table, running scenarios through them so that when it's like training, you're like preparing for this or this or this. And then you start to see certain things start to kind of come out into reality. And then you can go, okay, yeah, you know what? Pretty sure we're right here. This might be the option. Bang. Or everywhere, cause I think if, and this isn't like a bash to anyone, of whatever eschatology you believe. But if you really are dogmatic on one thing, then I feel you're unprepared for if for example, like it's wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because it's a lot
Yeah.
of interpretation and stuff. And it's very fascinating, man. The things you brought up. I mean, it's interesting stuff. I think there's something to it. You know, that
Yes.
there are things. There is some weight to what you're saying. I agree with you.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And the thing is like, it's not anything I wanted to believe. It's not like I was like weighted with this as a little one. It was like, yes,
Hmm.
I'm sticking to my guns. This is literally like being humbled by God over and over and over and over again. Like, yeah, pride is the first sin, and you got it.
Yeah.
You got to bend your knee. And, like, this is not. You're not gonna be welcome to too many dinner parties with this.
Yeah, the one thing that I try to think of is if in those Roman times, right, 70 AD, right, the Roman Empire was still the empire of the world. Now, if there was a mark of the beast,
Mm.
what would that have looked like in that time? And would it have had the capabilities to be a worldwide event where the image of the beast was now making or causing all to take this mark. And maybe we can't prove that back then because it's just something that
Well,
just can't be done. But
we see Roman buildings everywhere. It's on every continent. I mean, I've been in Honduras and Guatemala, Nicaragua. Each one of them has, Greco-Roman buildings. My stepmother in Thailand showed me pictures near their capital. They have Greco-Roman buildings in Thailand that were ancient. In Japan, there's Greco-Roman buildings. Like in areas of the world where you think, oh no, all throughout South America. Let's put it this way: the way Rome ruled was, as long as you paid your penance to them, you could have your prefect and have your culture.
mm-hmm.
But you knew the biggest, baddest man on the block had that particular building, and they had a very specific triangulation on the top with the very specific column pattern, and they were the head honcho. But they weren't like, oh, we're all going to be a uniform collective. They knew that wasn't the way to rule. They were worldwide. And somebody has said, I think it was Paul was bringing up that there was a ritual that they did with ash, but I don't remember what that was. And he was hypothesizing that might have been the mark of the
Oh,
beast. So
Lent.
I
It's where
I
they
don't
do the
remember.
cross on the forehead or something like that.
It could have been.
Maybe.
I would have remembered. I would have remembered Lent. I don't think it was
Okay.
Lent, but it did have to do with ash.
Well, it's so funny that the Catholic Church actually that's a ritual of the Catholic Church. It's a 40-day fast, pretty much. And Lent is where it's so funny. Remember, I was mentioning you Mystery Babylon, the Babylonian
Yes.
religion with the Catholic Church. Well, in one of the books of the prophets, can't remember if it's Jeremiah or Ezekiel. I need to remember this for the future. But when the women are mourning and crying for Tammuz, this is when Tammuz is actually mentioned in the Bible. Through history, you could see that they would mourn for Tammuz for 40 days and 40 nights for him to come back and to reincarnate and to lead the world again. And so I believe the Catholic Church has just switched that over into a 40-day fast. It's evolved, it's changed, but it's still the same. It's not like specifically the same, but it's the same. If that makes sense, it's the 40-day thing behind it. It's they mark you in the forehead. You're giving something up from yourself to get a benefit out of it. It's very it goes back to like just Baal worship and Moloch. It's the same that you would have to give something up to get some sort of benefit and to please the god. Which that's where they were casting their babies into the fires of Moloch. It's because they were actually getting an outcome from it, but and that's where it's like it gets kind of muddy watered. It's not, when I say it's the same, I'm saying it's like the same spirit. It's just different in the optics, but it's the same. Right. It's weird. It's like
No, I feel you.
It's a different food on the platter, but it smells the same. If that makes any sense. So
have you had Doc Brown on to talk about the Epic of Esau?
Man. Yeah, Justin is my boy.
What did you think of his theory about Nimrod and Gilgamesh being the same?
Yeah, so he gets it out of Jasher. Jasher talks about that Esau was the one who, Nimrod was going out. Him and Esau, basically it goes back to, I think it's the I want to say it's the Sumerian mythology with Gilgamesh and Enkidu. And Enkidu was the hairy, one, and Gilgamesh was like Nimrod. And so Nimrod went out into this forest, trying to battle against Enkidu, or Esau. Esau, battled both of the guards and then cut the head off of Nimrod, took the garments from the garden, which were from the serpent, by the way.
Yeah.
And he made this trade, right, with his brother Jacob, for the birthright. And so Jacob could cater to him and heal him, and You
Mm.
know, am I following that right? I read the book somewhere back there,
Yes, you
but
have.
yeah, that's interesting. It's a crazy
Mhm.
story when he breaks it out like that. I mean, he did a good
Mhm.
job.
Yeah, I've reached out to a couple of Sumerian scholars to see what they've thought, what they think about it, and I haven't heard back from them because I don't know enough about Sumerian. I don't have enough Sumerian scholarship
Hmm.
to be able to say whether or not the Gilgamesh slash Nimrod side of things is accurate. But
Right.
I love that story because when Justin and I were talking about it, it seemed like he was inspired. Like he was following the thread of inspiration to the point where I was like, I could feel the pangs of truth in it. Like I was like, wow. So I'm trying to do my due diligence and talk to other people that would would be more pro the Sumerian side of things to see what they have to say, just so I could have a balanced perspective with it. But the I forgot why I actually asked you about that. Like what was the thread I was trying
Well, it's almost
to
like you can see these similarities uh, with maybe mythologies and how things play out biblically. To where it's almost like it's the same smell in the air, but the specifics are not sometimes might not all add up. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But it could be the same stories. It's kind of like when I have you had Gary Wayne on your show?
Not yet, no.
Okay, so Gary, he kind of comes on and he'll maybe have a different perspective of Gilgamesh versus Nimrod because of certain specifics, but then that's kind of like where maybe the story gets roughed up,
Mhm.
passed down, or changed or whatever, but they could still be the same entity. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think Doc Brown was he Justin was pulling from a lot of he was telling me the Hebrew Targums, the
Hmm.
Jewish Targums that give a little bit more context, especially to the Old Testament. And like within those Targums, the descriptions of Esau at least were like very, very vivid. And um yeah, I just don't know enough about
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Gilgamesh side of things. So
yeah.
I'm
Has he been
looking
on your
forward to
show?
exploring
Has
that. Yeah.
Doc's been on your show? Awesome, man.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
feel
dude.
really bad because we were trying. I was supposed to go on his show, and I missed. I totally had to reschedule one time, and then I missed another. Like I missed. He sent me a message to come back to come onto his show, and then I totally missed that message. I didn't see it, so I scheduled something else. So I'm we're due to talk very soon again.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, dude, hey, listen, man, I'm glad you came on my show. This was a lot of fun. And my
Awesome,
audience
Steven.
loves the little season. So um it's been in due time that this has happened. So and plus,
Well,
I think there's a lot to it. I think there is, but I'm more like I think the mark of the beast is a very specific thing, and I've been on my investigations with the image of the beast, that
mhm.
apotheosis ritual, what that looks like, who the magi, the false prophet could be. And the mark that's in the forehead and the hand, I think, are very specific technologies that I've been also investigating.
Yeah, that's all a worthwhile study. If anybody really likes the architecture, like considering the architecture rel- relative to like my set of expertise with geopolymers, dome building and all that, and then like the actual, I guess you would say, building in the field, like building without any of the normal first world things that people are used to, I think they'd appreciate a lot of my podcasts because I really go deep onto that side of things because that's been my living for 20 years.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, man, we're going to wrap it up. Um,
Cool.
you know, Thank you so much. This was this was fun, man. This was a good time. And
Awesome, Steven.
listen, hey, real quick, if you could just shout out where the folks can find you, support you the most, and check you out on your outlets.
Yeah, and all social media, I'm at Biocharisma. You can see that right there. So YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, all the pod players. I have the Biocharisma podcast. My website is topherhq.com. People can, if you are looking for construction, and you can just email me at info@topherhq.com. I always forget. Oh, and I just started a Substack, and the Substack is
Nice.
also at Biocharisma. And I like doing more bloggy stuff there. I like to write, so I've been writing and posting fun articles there that are pretty mind, like, the way I should say it is, like, it's a good way to give your mind a narrative workout.
Nice. Nice, man. That's cool, man. Well, listen, folks, go check him out on his stuff. The links will be in the descriptions below. Brother, this was a lot of fun, man. Thank you again. I'm glad we got to link up for the first time. It's the first time of many, and we'll be able to
My
talk
pleasure.
about way more things, in the future. I like your conspiratorial mind because we could have got into so many different things, and we will. But
Awesome.
hey, thank you again, brother. God bless you. And I'm going to move right into the next segment.
Okay.
Right. Biblical Hitman debrief. Topher, Biocharisma. Thank you very much, brother. Folks, go check out his stuff, man. He's awesome, dude. And he's from where I'm from, so support the South Florida boys in the house. Wow, what a jam-packed episode. 2 hours. Let's go, baby. We got some endurance. We're hanging in there strong. We went over a lot of stuff. My goodness. A lot of things that I am very intrigued talking about. Getting into obviously some of the debatable topics, right? Like these are things that are like super controversial, especially if like you're scrolling on TikTok or whatever. You obviously have some components that are a flat Earth, little season, stuff like this. And there's a lot of things to these topics, right? Now, I obviously understand these are highly sensitive topics to where people really, really hold on to their biased opinions, and they're very offended with a lot of things pertaining to what side of the aisle that they're on when it comes to these topics. But I tell you what, just understand that there's a lot of things that we don't know and we can't prove, but it's understandable to really hear a lot of these things out. And there are some very interesting points to a lot of these topics. One of these being, flat Earth, and I think the name flat Earth alone is something that was probably invented by the CIA to just kind of discredit the idea, so that it kind of sounds real, silly. If that makes any sense, we obviously see that the CIA runs a lot of the propaganda. You know, a lot of the propaganda in America, just in general, but the idea of biblical cosmology, scripture, and what the scriptures say is very interesting as well, right? Now, you can take these things in a few ways. You can take them literal, you can take them allegorical, but either way you take it, the scripture is very interesting. It's very interesting compared to what we are told that we live on and what we are a part of in this universe. So that topic alone was very interesting to get into, and we covered probably just surface material. There's a lot more that we could have covered. There's even a lot of real tangible stuff with it. And I do understand this. Like there can be extraordinary explanations for certain things to where you go, oh, huh, I didn't think that could go the other way. So I am familiar with that. I do understand that. And we also got into a lot of the biochar stuff, the structural things that he engineers, which is super fascinating because if you go check out his Instagram, you can see that there's the things that he builds is very it's so different than your normal construction, I'll tell you that. And it's very fascinating and it's cool. It looks really cool. Hopefully one day I can get him out here in Florida. well beyond the construction of my house and what I'm going through with that. Prayers for me, folks, please. It's a real crazy time that me and my family are going through with this. It's probably the worst. It's the worst time I've ever had in my life. I will say that. And I've been through a lot of bad stuff. I've been through surgeries. I've had doctors tell me I'm going to die, but for some reason this one really feels like the worst stress I can ever be impacted with. And so just prayers for me. I don't got to get into it too much. Now, the little season stuff, very fascinating as well. I need to be able to outreach and get more people on. Maybe we can cover this topic and saturate it throughout, a multiple hour show with multiple people. I think it's going to be important to talk about this topic with not just one person, but I think we need to get multiple points of view and we need to get multiple thoughts at the table. So if anyone out there, if there's anyone that, you know, is a listener that is interested in getting little season guests on the show, if you want to just drop that in the comments, let me know who you want me to reach out to, and I'll try and make that work. We're completely booked up for November, which is a blessing. God is blessing this show. People want to come on the show, which is very cool. And I hope I'm producing a good show for you folks. If there's anything you want me to try and get better at, please drop that in the comments as well. And if there's anything that, I do that I need to get better at, drop that in the comments as well. Doesn't really hurt my feelings. Maybe it does a little bit, but that's part of growing, getting better, becoming a better podcaster, interview, and all of those things. Now, I also want to thank everyone for getting through the ad space. The ad space sucks. I know it, folks. But I'm telling you what, right now, getting through the ad space is the best way that you can support this show. It is the only way that I have any kind of financial support for this project and this operation that I'm doing. And it's a big operation. I mean, I'm putting out 3 shows a week. That's 30 hours of editing time per week. And that's not including 2-hour interviews at minimum per guest. Plus, I also work 72 hours a week minimum, and usually it's more than that. Sometimes I do overtime shifts like I just did these past 3 days. I've only been able to sleep at home for 16 hours of the last 3 days. So prayers for that. And again, much love for everyone here. And I appreciate everyone for getting through the ad space. Shout out to you guys. Okay. Supporting the show the most, doing this. And just want to let you know I really appreciate that. But hey, listen, if you've been with us this long, you want to support the show, make sure you head on over to YouTube. While you're there, smash that subscribe button, like the show, drop a comment down below, and share the show with your friends if you enjoyed it. Also, you can check us out on audio platforms because we're not just on video, folks, or on YouTube. We are on the audio side. Let's go. Okay, you can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Spreaker. And if you like the show, please, I encourage everyone to drop a 5-star review. What this does is it helps the show get into the algorithm. It helps grow the show. It helps brand the show a little bit and bring more familiarity to it throughout the algorithms and on these platforms that I'm on. And I know that it seems like we've got 2,000 followers on Spotify. Let's go! Shout out to all you guys out there, girls. I appreciate you so much for following the show. If you haven't left a 5-star review, just take the time and try and do that for me. And I deeply appreciate that, and much love to you as well. And hey, listen, if you're not following the show, but you watch it, hit that follow button. Come on now. And don't forget to hit that notification bell as well, because we are posting episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And guess what? If I start to cook up a little bit more in the kitchen, I'm going to drop it throughout the week as well. And so, but with all that said, folks, thank you so much. I really appreciate this community. I love this community. And I think God's doing some great things for us and through us. And, it's not only growing, but it's developing. And that's the biggest thing. So let's sharpen each other each and every day, each and every episode. And, with all that said, God bless. Jesus Christ is King. And I love you all. See you next time.